What's up, everybody? This is Cory, and we are on the 4th episode of Living in the Red, the podcast for people who live in red states but don't align with the red state agenda. I'm Cory Bradford, history content creator. I got my co-host Cody with me.
I'm Cody D, journalist, unapologetic truth teller.
So unapologetic that some people who have been listening to the podcast be getting upset with the truth telling.
They'll be
but
okay.
But not as much for real. Like the last episode, a lot of people were just like, yeah, she's right. You know, like they wouldn't even
Always
tripping
right.
for real.
I tell my husband that too. I'm always right. Very rarely are you going to hear me say anything that is not correct. You may just not like it. You may not like the delivery. You may not appreciate the moments in which I decide to tell those truths. But yeah, I like to think that I know what I be talking about.
For the most part, I rarely hear you say something where I'm just like, well, that ain't right. You know, like I rarely hear you say something like that.
And if I'm
But
not right, I have no problem saying I got that one wrong.
sure. And I'm the same way. Sometimes I tell people the smartest thing you can say sometimes is I don't know. Like if you just don't know something, just that's what I do.
Yeah.
But we got a good episode lined up today. The first thing we're going to talk about is this government shutdown, going on almost a month of the government being shut down.
Yeah.
Cody, how have you been personally affected by this shutdown?
To be honest, I feel like I'm one of the lucky ones where I really haven't been affected, thankfully. Thankfully, because my husband's a veteran, he works for the VA. And so when the shutdown was announced, I was like, what's happening? How is this going to affect us? And thankfully it has not. But I've been keeping up with a lot of the things that people are saying. I'm friends with a lot of people on Facebook, with people here in the Birmingham metro area who work at the Social Security office. There's a large Social Security office here. And so what I do love is I've been seeing a lot of people locally talk about how they are gathering their resources or working with other people to try to give back. So I saw somebody who was like, hey, me and my friends were going to start, giving food out to some people who may need some meals who haven't gotten paid. Some women who want to get their hair done, like we'll pay for you to get a silk press, which, for a Black woman, that means everything, because it may be, I may not have anywhere to go, but I just want to feel good. Let me get my hair done and just feel like a new person, So it's been really cool to see people come together and pull their resources together to help those who have been furloughed.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually helping to organize a food drive in the Anniston, Oxford area. So that's something I'm working with a nonprofit to do. And I absolutely agree with you about the hair situation too, because like I feel like as important as that is for Black women, for Black men, it's all about this edge up. If this edge up is not looking right, I don't even go outside. I don't make
Right.
TikToks. I don't even want to do anything. Like when we do this podcast, I literally be like Tuesdays when we used to shoot on Tuesday nights. I'm like, I'm going to the barbershop Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon before we even film, because if the edge up ain't looking right, it's not even gonna be a good day.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I got my hair done tonight, so yeah, with us doing this show and being on camera, I'm like, okay, I got to find a way to make sure that my hair is done all the time now, in some kind of way.
But what I wanted to do, Cody, was I wanted to figure out how did we get here when it came to this government shutdown. So I was doing some research about the history of government shutdowns in this country. And I was thinking I was going to find like, oh man, all these shutdowns throughout time. It really hasn't happened that often. And really, it's a very recent phenomenon.
Yeah.
Since the 1980s, really. Before that, the government never shut down for any period of time. And that's because basically we had a bill get passed in the 1880s, 1884, called the Anti-Deficiency Act. And it basically said that the government can't spend money if Congress hasn't appropriated funds for that new fiscal year. So that's why we have government shutdowns. It's like if you don't appropriate the funds properly, then the government can't spend money. The thing about it is that bill was passed in 1884 and we just completely ignored it for a century. Like for like 100 years, we just said, yeah, we ain't gonna follow that. The government gonna be running no matter what. But sometime in the late 1970s, when Jimmy Carter was president, Jimmy Carter was a very honorable man. Yeah. And he was like, you know what we need to do? I need to figure out what to do when these funding gaps occur, because, he just didn't feel right about it. So his attorney general actually ruled that when those funding gaps occur and the funding hasn't been appropriated for the new fiscal year, which starts on October 1st, then the government has to shut down. And ever since the 1980s, the government has been shutting down when those funding gaps occur. And it's shut down a handful of times. And I looked through all the times, and usually it's usually a political shutdown, right? It's usually some type of partisan issue between the president and Congress, or between two different forces in Congress. Back in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan, the government shut down 3 times while Reagan was in office, mainly because Ronald Reagan forced these shutdowns to happen. It was the president actually forcing the shutdown to happen. He wanted the government to shut down for all kinds of reasons, to force spending cuts. At one point, he actually shut the government down to stop a civil rights measure from passing. Yes, that's very true.
I
And
believe
then
it.
towards the yeah, oh yeah, Ronald Reagan, 100%, I believe
That
that.
sounds
And
right.
then towards the end of his presidency, he basically shut the government down one time because Congress wasn't operating fast enough. Like that's the kind of shit Ronald Reagan would do on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But Bill Clinton, it shut down twice when Bill Clinton was in office because, as you know, that the Republicans controlled a lot in Congress when he was in office. So there was always disputes between him and Congress. During Obama's time period, it shut down once in 2013, and that was, of course, over Obamacare. Republicans were trying to stop Obamacare from being funded at the very beginning, and that caused the government shutdown. That was about 16 days, so not that bad compared to what we got going on now. And of course, the government has shut down before during Trump's time period, during his first term. It shut down twice during his first term. And in 2018 to 2019, it shut down for 35 days, which was the longest government shutdown in our country's history. And it was
I
all
remember that.
over. Yeah, you remember that one. Yeah, that was a big one because that one lasted a long time. A lot of workers got affected, billions of dollars lost, and that was all over
Now,
the
what was
border
the
wall.
fight over with that one? Because I was working as a TV producer at a local news station here when the shutdown was happening, but I don't remember what was the fight over.
So basically overspending, but specifically at that particular time, Donald Trump was trying to move a bunch of spending to fund that border wall,
Okay.
and trying to push money in that direction. And Democrats was like, nah, and so that's what that dispute was really over.
Okay.
So that's like the history. It's always over something political. It's always over some type of dispute between the political parties. And right now, the dispute seems to be over mainly what I can see is mainly over the ACA, the Affordable Health Care Act subsidies, like the subsidies that are supposed to provide lower insurance premiums for people who have Obamacare. The Republicans are trying to get rid of those subsidies, or actually, those subsidies, I believe it is, they expired this year. And Republicans are basically just not going to extend them. Democrats are trying to get some sort of extension for them. And that's basically what this war is over. So, Cody, what do you think? Do you think, like, first of all, do you think this shutdown is more on the Democrats or more on the Republicans? And who do you think is going to get hurt more in the end when it comes to the political parties? Who's going to get the blame for this shutdown more?
Well, obviously, each party are pointing fingers at each other. So that's the first thing. Secondly, it's Republicans. I mean, you guys control the entire government. The entire government.
Yep.
And what I don't understand is, and I was going to ask you this is, okay, so they don't want to extend the subsidies so that healthcare can continue to be affordable for these people. Because let's remember, the people who are on Obamacare are people who typically cannot, one, either afford and fill in the gaps from here, Corey, but typically
Mhm.
cannot afford to get healthcare or are self-employed.
And yeah, mainly that, and just like, yeah, they work jobs where their jobs don't provide them with healthcare. If you work in like a small time retail job, a fast food job, you normally are not going to get healthcare through those types of jobs. So it's usually people who are working class, lower class people, and then of course, like you said, people who either are self-employed or they work in the gig economy. They go from project to project. People like me, who just like do stuff like that, and there's no real like working healthcare plan from an employer when you're in that line of work. So you have to go through Obamacare if you want to be
Right.
insured.
So, what are Republicans offering or suggesting if they are not going to extend these subsidies that have existed so that people can afford their health care?
Well, they have concepts of a plan.
And that's the
They have
problem.
concepts of a
Like,
plan, but
it's always, yeah, it's
but they
always
have no real
concepts of a
plan.
plan. And in my opinion, it's really just them continuing their culture wars. Like, I don't believe that this would be a thing if it wasn't called Obamacare. I mean, it's really called
Yes,
what's the real name for it? The American Affordable, yes, the
Affordable Health
Affordable
Care
Healthcare
Act.
Act.
Yeah.
So would this even be like really a thing if it was like popularly known as Obamacare? Like this directly, and you asked me, well, who is this going to hurt the most? This is going to affect working class people, like you mentioned earlier,
Yes.
specifically Republicans. Why? the thing that I'm not understanding about all the things that have been happening in the last week is there are still people who are defending the things that Republicans are doing, defending Donald Trump. And it's like, but these things are going to directly affect you. How do you not understand or
Yeah,
see that?
yeah.
So anyway, my thing is whenever these shutdowns happen, or specifically in this one, I'm always asking the question, well, what can be negotiated? Okay, you don't want the subsidies to be extended, then what's the offer that you're willing to give so that there could be negotiation between the two parties so that the government can be reopened so that people can be able to take care of themselves.
Yeah, and the Republicans don't seem to be willing to negotiate anything. They keep saying, we're not going to negotiate under these circumstances. We're not going to have any conversations. And the Democrats are like, all right, then we're not going to pass the bill to reopen the government. And that seems to be, they're basically at an impasse right now. Like the Republicans don't want to negotiate, and the Democrats are not backing down because they feel that this shutdown is crucial to them being able to extend those subsidies. And really, in my opinion, the Democrats right now, they're fighting for Obama's legacy in many ways. I mean, yes, they are fighting for lower health insurance premiums for working class Americans, which is a great fight to be had. It's a fight that I directly benefit from. But in many ways, one of Obama's lasting pieces of his legacy is
Right.
Obamacare. Like that's the main thing he did. It's the main thing his name is associated with. And so, Republicans have been trying to get rid of Obamacare ever since it was passed.
It's insane. And are they even proposing what they're going to replace it with? Like, I just don't understand. Like, how can you make it seem as if it is a negative for the American people that this exists?
Their whole thing is about funding. It's like, oh, we don't want to spend money to have people have lower healthcare
Okay,
costs.
well,
And it's like,
okay,
what?
but stay
Like you
there. Stay there. You don't want to fund that. So, what are you willing to fund so that people can have affordable health care? If not this, can you move some other money around? Can the government spend less money? So, where are the solutions? Like, that's always what I'm looking for here. And the Republicans, again, are just, in my opinion, continuing to bait into what I deem to be culture wars, which is we don't want this healthcare act to be named after Obama, or well, it's already named after Obama, but we don't want to continue uh to give it life.
Yeah, basically. You're absolutely right when you say it's about a culture war because at the end of the day, they have convinced their constituents that Obamacare is a bad thing, even though it objectively lowers the cost of healthcare for them as well as any working class Americans. And they're telling them, no, this is a bad thing because it was associated with Obama, it's associated with Democrats. It's just that period. It's just that simple. And so, yeah, it's crazy to me that this is happening the way it is. Like you said, they don't have any plan to replace it with. They don't have any idea on their end on how to bring down these healthcare costs. So I think this is going to probably drag on a little bit long. I think it's going to be the longest one in history. I don't see any side backing down anytime soon, and that just means more pain for the workers, the furloughed workers, but also it means more pain for working class Americans who need food assistance and get food assistance from the federal government because we know that on November 1st, they're telling us that SNAP benefits are going to run out and that they're not going to have any funding for SNAP in most U.S. states. Now, some states like New York have stepped up and they have like emergency funding that they're going to put forth. But a lot of states, people who get food stamps, they're not going to be able to get them for the month of November. Now, the crazy thing about this is I saw a video earlier today, which was basically talking about that there is actually a $5 billion emergency fund that
They
the federal
and
government has
to tap
to
into it,
make
right?
sure, yeah, they're not going to tap into it. It's a fund that's dedicated to make sure SNAP will be funded even if there's a government shutdown. And Trump and the Republicans are choosing not to tap into that fund because if you remember, you go back to that shutdown that we were just talking about in
Yeah,
2018, 2019. There was no SNAP benefits taken away during that shutdown. We don't remember hearing about that, and that would have been a huge thing if we had heard about that or if that had happened. So this is something that the Republicans are doing on
right,
purpose as a political move for them to take away this funding and to not fund the SNAP benefits because again, it's just a part of, like you said, this culture war and the sort of misinformation around who gets these food assistance
right.
benefits in
And
the first
so,
place.
well, first of all, I was going to ask. So, well, not ask, but it was laid out, from my understanding, in Project 2025 that they were going to be using this shutdown as a means to further shrink the government. So if that means that they can get away with
Yes.
laying people off, they're going to do that during the shutdown. Trump has also said publicly that some people may not get back pay, which we know is unlawful. But also, I mean, I think we were supposed to talk about SNAP benefits a little bit later. But I do want to give some information that's out there because some of the stuff that's been said is incorrect. And so, but I also
Okay.
want to ask you this too, along with Project 2025 and this kind of being a part of the Republicans' plan. When I hear this stuff, my mind is just so blown because I'm just like, what is the goal? You guys are purposely trying to starve people? I mean, again, if you've read Project 2025, a lot of it was about shrinking the government, giving all the money to the billionaires and millionaires that already exist, taking away resources from people who need them most, and starving them out. Why? Like I'm just trying to. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm just trying to rationalize. Like, what is the long term plan here?
Well, let me say this. Let me clean this up because I don't want it to come out the wrong way. I won't say all Republicans, but I will say the people who control the Republican Party, the very wealthy people who control the Republican Party, they hate the poor. Like you can't really look at it any other way. They hate poor people and they blame poor people for America's problems, but specifically, they try to associate poverty with certain groups that tend to vote
With
Democrat, but
certain
also
groups,
just certain
Corey.
groups that Republicans and conservatives find themselves at odds with. Well, I'll tell you what, black people is one of those groups.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if we were allowed to say that or not.
Now, I didn't ever say you weren't allowed to.
Can I talk about black people again today? I just want to know, like, can I talk about how this is all like rooted in racism? Because
A
again,
hundred
it is.
percent, 100%. I mean,
Okay.
it's about. I think I would say that's at the core of it because we all know that conservatives love to say, "Oh, the black welfare queen or black folks on the food stamps." But it's like, I'll just say this from personal, like, just anecdotal from my life. I have seen far more people in the grocery store who were white using EBT cards than I have black. And that has
Yeah.
just been my personal experience. Now, of course, we know a lot of black folks that use EBT, of course, but white folks use it just as much, if not more. And so this idea that, oh, this is something that black people are taking advantage of or something like that. First of all, even if we were taking advantage of, I feel like, I mean, reparations, we should be able to take advantage of.
Hashtag
Like we should
reparations.
be able to take advantage of it. But on the other hand, too, it's like mostly white people use food stamps and EBT, and so you're actually affecting a huge core of your base who supports you for
Your base.
ideological reasons. But economically speaking, they benefit from these benefits that you're always claiming are they cost too much or that people are abusing. I don't think people really understand how much of MAGA actually uses these benefits, and they're the ones who are going to go without food come November.
Well, I mean, can I go ahead and go into the topic about what
Yeah, go
Tuberville
for it.
said in the
Go for it.
misinformation
Let's yeah, we can go ahead
about?
and do
Okay.
that.
So, okay. So, Tommy Tuberville, who is a U.S. Senator based here in Alabama, or is considered an Alabama senator, even though he doesn't live here, he made comments on, and well, it wasn't on MSNBC, but MSNBC pulled the quote where he basically said that there are a lot of young men who are receiving these benefits who need to be working. Now, most of the people who receive food
Mhm,
stamps are lower working class
mhm,
people who need that as a subsidy into their household so that they can afford
mhm.
food. People who are
Yep.
disabled, so that could be any person of any age, and typically the elderly. And most of these people who receive most of the people who receive food stamps are families, people who have children in their household. So you're talking about taking food away from children,
Yeah.
okay? Not grown people who just don't feel like going to work and are claiming their food. I mean, of course there are people who take advantage of the system, but that is not the majority. Um, and so, of course, Tommy Tuberville was ripped to shreds on MSNBC by Morning Joe, which is where the that information was heavily circulated. So, just to give some facts around it, SNAP only consists of 1.5% of the federal budget. 1.5%, not even an entire
Mhm,
2%. Okay, most SNAP benefit most I'm sorry, I cannot talk tonight. Most SNAP participants are people who are holding full-time
yes.
jobs that don't get a livable wage. So the people that you mentioned earlier, Corey, the people who typically are going to be on Obamacare, people who work um uh fast food restaurants, probably grocery stores, people who probably are getting that minimum wage hourly pay. And then I'm getting all this information from Feed America, which is a nonprofit that has, I think, 200 food banks across the country. 2/3 of people who benefit from SNAP are children, older adults, and people with disabilities who cannot work. So, again, everything is rooted in racism, like you said. I have seen Tommy Tuberville basically do, in my opinion, what do they call it? Like color coding
Yep.
your language to where you are essentially trying to say something without saying exactly what it is that you mean. You are talking specifically about Black people because he also mentioned people who work in
Yeah.
cities.
Yeah.
Now, in the state of Alabama, most of the people who live in cities, in Mobile, Huntsville, Birmingham, Montgomery, those cities are majority. Well, I don't know about Huntsville, but we're talking about cities that are majority Black.
Tommy Tuberville is a white supremacist. I think this has been pretty well established. A couple years ago, he actually referred to, yeah,
100%.
he actually referred to people who live in the inner city as rats. He was like, these rats
That's
in the inner
rats. He
city.
did that
Yeah.
earlier this
Yeah.
week.
And
Yep.
so, yeah, he's done it multiple
On the
times.
heels of him announcing that he is running for governor in Alabama
Yeah,
next
yeah,
year.
and that would be disastrous for the state because he is an extremist and certainly a racist. And yeah, he's made these sort of racial remarks about people in Birmingham, people in Montgomery, just people in bigger cities in general. And yeah, obviously, when I think of EBT, food stamps, I don't think of single young men who aren't working. Like it would be nearly impossible. I wouldn't say
No.
impossible completely, but it would be nearly impossible for a single young man to even be
I
able to
think
get
about
SNAP.
working single
Yeah.
mothers. Yes, I think about working single mothers or households where there's not a large dual income
Yep.
that's coming in. I'm thinking about the disabled people. I'm thinking about my
Yep.
grandparents. Those are the people I'm thinking about who need those
Yeah. And like
benefits.
you said, the majority of them actually do work jobs. They just work jobs that don't pay a livable wage. And so this is the way they can get extra food for themselves and their kids. And that's the people that are having the food and benefits ripped from them because of this shutdown and because of Republicans choosing to take that and target that when they don't
Mhm.
necessarily have to. There are funds out there in the government dedicated to keeping that up and running, even during the government shutdown. But they're targeting that specifically because it's a political game for them. Now they can say, "Oh, look, the Democrats are the ones who took these SNAP benefits away from you." But it's like, no, you're doing that. You control everything. Like you just said earlier, you control all three branches of the government. You control Congress.
Literally have the money to pull from it, and you guys said
Yeah. Yeah.
no.
And I think voters are smart enough to look at that and say, yeah, that's on you, Republicans. That is
Are you sure they smart enough? Because I'm looking at these people here in Alabama, and I'm like, okay, this guy who you guys will likely vote in to be governor next year is saying this. Almost 15% of the Alabama population depend on
yeah.
SNAP.
15%. That's
That's a large
huge.
percentage.
That's a huge percent.
I'm just thinking about all the people who in the state who depend on that, and they're not all
No,
Black people.
no, both of them
And
are.
you talked about how you've talked about how you grew up around people who
Oh
depended
yeah.
on that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. And so yeah, it's. I would love to talk to a MAGA person who fully supports Trump, but is on food stamps and is now about to get those food stamps, at least delayed for at least a month. And it's like, yeah, do you still support MAGA? I mean, they probably will, and they'll probably vote. They'll probably blame the Democrats. But it's like, but these people on the right, not only are they more responsible for this particular incident, but also they've been trying to cut food stamps and get rid of that entirely for a while now. In fact, the Big Beautiful Bill cuts funding for SNAP significantly. So either way, they've been trying to take cuts out of this for a long time. It's like they have something against people eating food. Like it's like having kids going hungry is like not a big deal for them. Not a deal breaker.
I don't understand it because my question also is, do any of these Republican lawmakers, do they ever sit back and think about, why was SNAP ever created in the first place? Why was food stamps ever something that American people needed in the first place? Let's look back and do the Corey Bradford and look at our history and try to understand why this is needed so that we can have a conversation about what this should look like in modern times. If I'm correct, Corey, and you're the history professional here. SNAP EBT, this was all birthed out of the Great Depression. So after the Great Depression ended, there was the Great Deal. Am I
New
getting that
Deal. Yeah,
correct?
New Deal.
Okay. And so there were all of these social welfare programs that were created to help people be able to essentially connect the gaps between the income that they're bringing home and being able to survive with the essentials that they need. Okay. Ain't nothing about American life changed to where people don't need that no more. If anything, there needs to be greater qualifications for more people to probably get on those programs just because of the rate of inflation and how salaries are not keeping up with the rate of inflation. So, again, what is the goal? You said that Republicans hate poor people. Okay,
I,
why? You how does me not eating affect you and your multi-million dollar home with your multiple bedrooms and multiple bathrooms, with your chef and your deliveries and all the luxuries of life that you can afford? Tell me how me not eating affects
yeah,
that.
it's crazy. Like you said, a little over 1% of the federal budget is used on SNAP. It's such a small amount of money in relation to everything else the government spends and wastes money on. And like, I would much rather my taxpayer dollars go towards feeding people. Like, I don't have any problem with people using government assistance to feed themselves. Like, that's just me personally. I have no problem with that. I can't see why a person would have a problem with that. I mean, I guess there's this sort of this thinking in Republicans, oh, you got to work for it. You got to work for it. Well, these people are working and they're
They're
paying bills
working.
and they simply can't afford. And if they have like three, four, five kids, like, how are they going to feed every single one of them consistently? Like, I mean,
And if you want them to get off of it, then how about pay
pay them more
them
money,
more? Are you guys willing to subsidize additional pay so that so all people can have a
raise
livable
that minimum
wage,
wage.
so that all people can afford their rents, all people can afford their grocery bills, all people can afford transportation to get to and from work, enough money to where people can at least enjoy maybe one vacation a
Yeah.
year?
Yeah, something's got to give, right? It's got to either you got to shrink the economic inequality and raise the wages, or these types of benefits have to be in place so that people don't starve to death. So, one thing or the other.
Or let's stop being capitalistic.
So Cody then became a communist on me.
I'm just saying, look, I don't give a damn. Whatever it is that we can do so that all people can eat and survive.
Absolutely,
Like shit, call me a communist if you want to, like
I'm
whatever.
with you.
But y'all don't want to do that either. Y'all people I don't understand Americans being so caught up in specific titles of
It's
political parties.
ridiculous.
Anyway,
It's greed and it's confusion. Most people don't even know what communism even means. It's just ridiculous. But moving on, there's a very interesting
yep.
governor's race that I want to ask you about, the Virginia governor's race. I really want to get your opinion on this because this is a fascinating race. We have a Democrat, Abigail Spanberger. She was a congresswoman, and I believe she was a CIA agent during the Obama years. So that's very interesting. And she is running against a Republican, Winsome Earl Sears, who is the lieutenant governor of Virginia right now. And Winsome Earl Sears is a black woman, but a Republican running against a white woman who is a Democrat. Now, there's all these controversies surrounding, like President Obama, for instance, went to Virginia and told people, "Hey, you got to vote for Spanberger. You got to vote for this white lady Democrat." And the conservatives were saying, like, "No, wait a minute. You told people last year, black men specifically, that they should vote for Kamala Harris, the black woman candidate. Now you're telling them to vote against the black woman candidate in this particular race." Now, I know it's more complicated than that, but I wanted to get your opinion about this particular race. I guess my biggest question is, should black voters in Virginia put party over race to benefit their race? Like, is it more important for them to have someone who may be white but is politically an ally to them, or should they vote for the black woman solely because she's a black woman, even though she's a Republican and a part of a party that currently doesn't really support the best interest for African Americans? How do you feel about that?
First of all, I can't even believe that that is a talking point. Like, are people so fucking stupid and have become? I mean, like, I know that we are in a literacy crisis, but are we really going to try to compare what President Obama said last year in regards to Kamala Harris running to this black MAGA woman running for governor in Virginia? Are we going to try to conflate the two and act like they're the same things? They're not. And we're not going to sit here and have a conversation and pretend like they are. They are not the same thing. I will never say that black people should put party over race or vice versa. It's always about what is of the benefit of us, right? And so if there is a black woman who is MAGA, which is essentially anti-black, that is what MAGA is, that is currently what the Republican Party
Absolutely.
is, then no, I am not voting for her. The fuck? No, I'm going to vote for a white woman because her agenda is more pro-black than the black woman's agenda. I don't like her being black does not mean that she is skin folk.
Yeah.
Okay, what they say, all kinfolk is not skinfolk. Okay, she ain't
Yeah,
kinfolk.
yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I mean, this has been such a common tactic. This goes back to the plantation where they used to take the house Negro. They used to take the one in the house that was shining the dishes and stuff, and they used him
Yep.
to divide and conquer. And then there was people out there in the field, they were the ones that had to work. And so, yeah, this
Yeah,
has been the use of certain black people to go against other black people's rights has been a white conservative tactic for centuries. And yeah,
forever,
we've
forever.
seen it before,
And it ain't never
and it never
worked.
worked.
It ain't
It
never
never worked.
worked. I mean, I don't know a black Republican politician who has been able to successfully. I mean, I know on a phone call you mentioned Tim Scott. I don't know much about Tim Scott's elections and what he's won and all that kind of stuff before, but he may be the only person that I can think of in recent
Mhm.
times that has been able to win elections at a state
Yeah,
level.
yeah, the state level, yeah, it's only
So,
Tim Scott because other than them, they don't like. What's so crazy about it, and this is unfortunate for this black woman in Virginia who's gonna find this out. I don't care how conservative you are, them white men are not gonna put you in charge. They might want you to be the face. They might want you to kind of like, oh, we're not really racist, so they want you to kind of be their mouthpiece. But I'm telling you, we saw this in Georgia with Herschel Walker. You know, Herschel Walker obviously
oh my
wasn't the
God,
brightest bulb in the room, but Herschel Walker.
he ain't even a ball.
But what's so funny about it to me was that Brian Kemp, the Republican, okay, he wins the governor's race, right? He beats Stacey Abrams, beats a black woman, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
yet Herschel Walker, the black Republican U.S. Senate guy, doesn't win in the same cycle. So that tells me there were white people who went to the ballots, they checked off Brian Kemp's name, and they said, you know what? I'm gonna stop right there. I'm gonna vote for this Republican man at the top for the governor, but I'm just not gonna vote for this black guy running for senator. And they probably didn't vote for Raphael Warnock, the Democrat candidate, but I don't think they voted either way. They probably just didn't vote
Yeah,
for that
they voted
position.
plain.
And
Yeah,
I think that's what happened in Virginia. I feel like there are going to be certain white people there who are conservative, who are Republican, who are MAGA, who are just gonna sit this one out because they would rather just sit one out than actually vote for anybody of color, even if it's somebody that's saying things they agree with.
well, she won lieutenant
She
governor,
did.
so I mean,
She did.
somebody showed up to vote for her then.
The lieutenant governors don't
But
really
I
do
don't know.
anything for real.
Well, that's true, and I don't know who her opponent was.
Yeah,
So you know, and also let's be clear, a lot of people go to the polls not knowing who these
yeah,
candidates are. They vote based off a party or name
yep,
recognition,
yep.
right? Like I've talked plenty of times about how there are people here
Mhm.
locally in Alabama who probably should have been elected out a long time ago, but because they have had a couple of successful um, terms while they're in office, or they do a good job of manipulating the local
Yep.
media, and they're able to get their name out there a lot. A lot of people just vote for them because of name recognition, and they don't know who their opponents are. So, I mean, I don't know how this lady got voted into lieutenant governor the first time. Um, but it does seem that she's having some kind of support. But I agree that the turnout probably really won't be showing up in droves. But going back to what you said a moment ago about how conservatives like to just pick a black face, I mean, even with Tim Scott doing all of his tap dancing for Donald Trump, he still didn't get an appointed
No,
position within the White
no.
House. So you did all that tap dancing for what? Candace Owens, same thing. You did all that tap dancing for what, my girl? Okay. And then now with this lady, I went and did some digging on her and read about her politics and the things that she's done over the last few years. Okay, so in 2022, you acted like you had sense for about 5 seconds, like a lot of the other Republicans, and said, "Nah, I ain't fucking with Trump. Nah, I'm done with all that." Da 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 da. Okay, and as soon as you realized he was actually going to be the Republican nominee in 2024, you were like, "Okay, let me go back to sucking some dick. How can I make sure that I can get me an appointed position in the White House?" And you still didn't get it. You still didn't get it. You sucked dick for no reason. So now let's see what happens if you're going to actually get this governor seat. Let's see if that tap. And I'm not going to say that she's tap dancing because she seems to be a lifelong
Yes.
Republican. I just don't understand how a black person can stand
Hmm.
truthfully in deciding that they are going to be MAGA, knowing that it's as I mean, there's no question around how anti-black
Yeah.
Trump is, how anti-black MAGA is, and how anti-black the Republican Party is today. I mean, you and I've had conversations about how okay, the Republican Party was different 20
Sure.
years ago. And I put that in quotation marks because I don't look at it that way. I feel like they've always been racist. But sure. So maybe we can give her a slight pass for her politics from 20 years ago. Today,
Yeah.
You don't have no excuse. You are aligning yourself with an anti-black party. You are being anti you and joining forces, and I don't understand it.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. Black MAGA has never made any sense to me. I mean, unless you're getting paid. I mean, if they paying you to do it, sell your soul, okay. But if you just naturally Black MAGA, I think a lot of black men, they're being weaponized because of the Democrats' association with LGBT communities. There's a lot of homophobia in the black
Which
community, and I feel like that's weaponizing
can we
black
have
men.
a conversation about that someday? I really do want to. I would love to have a guest on the show where we could talk specifically
Yeah,
about that, about how Democrats have lost black men because the party has chosen to be pro
yeah.
LGBTQ, which is mind blowing. But also, it has a lot to do with the education gap as
Sure,
well.
sure.
But go
No,
ahead.
absolutely. That would be a very interesting conversation because I feel like that's one of the main issues. I feel like also there may be some stuff dealing with like feminism because I think in the black community, particularly like in the working class black community, there's a lot of weird, hatred of women and specifically hatred of black women that I've noticed. And
Yeah,
so I think that plays into it because black women have a lot of power in the Democratic Party today, much more than they had 20 years ago. And so I think that
yeah,
plays into it. And I think those are the two biggest things: gender and the homophobia stuff. I think that's what really has pushed a significant amount, not a majority, but definitely a significant amount of black men to the Republican Party. But still, it's like you don't see the literal Klansmen standing right next to you at the rally. Like you don't see the literal hoods right there next to you. Like how can you just like rationalize just because you agree with them on a couple of things, they hate you and want to make you a second class citizen or worse, and yet you're still voting for them, and you don't get anything out of it other than hurting other people that don't even have anything to do with you. So I don't really. It's a crazy phenomenon, but it has been a sort of successful, you know, gambit on behalf of Republicans, but not really much so because I mean, still you still got like 80% of black men still vote for the Democrats. So, but that's down from like it was like 90% maybe like 10 years ago. So
right,
they're making
right.
inroads, unfortunately. But yeah, no, I,
Unfortunately,
I agree with you. You got to choose the person who is going to best represent your interests. And again, all skin folk and kin folk, and you got to realize when a person doesn't represent your interests, even if they look like you, even if they might come from a similar area as you, listen to what they're saying, listen to the policies, listen to the words they're actually saying, and then make your decision. Don't just blindly make it because they may look like you, and don't just blindly make it because of the party that they're in. Really listen to what they're
right.
saying, and then go from there. Um, I'm curious about this New York City mayor's race because this one's got a lot of implications for the Democratic Party going forward, right?
Yeah. Well, explain.
Well, Zorhan Mandami, I believe I'm getting his name right, is a Democratic nominee for this race, is leading it, will probably win. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. And he considers himself a Democratic socialist. And if he is able to become mayor, not to mention, in his background, he was actually born in Africa, if I'm not mistaken, like Uganda. His parents were like professors and filmmakers. They used to go all over the world. So he lived in Uganda growing up and then moved to New York City when he was a little bit older. But he's Muslim. He's originally from Africa. He is an immigrant. He's naturalized U.S. citizen, but he is an immigrant, and he considers himself a democratic socialist. And he's a former rapper, also. I'll throw that out there. So he is everything. I mean, everything
Yeah.
Republicans and conservatives fear.
But he's a true New
A true New
Yorker.
Yorker.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Like his background and everything you just said sounds like the story of a New
Absolutely.
Yorker.
So it makes sense for somebody like that to run for office in New York and win. And he did. He was a state assemblyman there for a couple of years, made a little bit of a name for himself, but was able to really stand out in this particular election cycle, won a Democratic nomination over Andrew Cuomo, the former governor of New York, very corrupt governor of New York, who is running as an independent against Mandami. And Cuomo is making up some ground. He's polling a little bit better, but Mandami still has a pretty tight lead. And if Mandami wins, it really shows that this whole democratic socialist thing could become the future of the Democratic Party.
Well, duh.
Right?
I
I
mean,
mean, Bernie could have
goddamn.
told you that 10 years ago.
Part of the reason why I have a hard time being, I don't want to say loyal, but like wanting to continue to identify as a Democrat is because of how they did the 2016 election and basically handed the primary over to Hillary instead of allowing Bernie a true opportunity. I mean, I just feel like our country would be in a totally different place today because I think that he was the only person who really could have beat Trump in 2016.
Yeah.
And so, there wouldn't have been all these, these implications that have happened afterwards since the 2016 election. But I will say for Mandami, I not only is he um I guess a refresher of what a lot of Democrats have been looking for. But I think his messaging is pretty strong. He's
Yeah,
all about affordability. He is
yeah,
all about, we know that New York City is, I think, the most expensive place to live in the country. And it is expensive for the people who decide to continue to live there. And so, what are you going to say to the people who live in the most expensive city in the country? How can we make your life more affordable?
yeah,
And so he has been consistent in that, and he has proposed ideas around how the city can be more affordable. And that's really all any people who tend to be left leaning need to hear.
yeah,
Um, and I won't even just say left leaning, I would say people in the center too,
yeah.
because a lot of people argue the fact that Kamala's messaging around, um, making the economy better was not very strong. And I guess part of that being because she didn't want to distance herself from Joe Biden and a lot of his policy decisions. But, it seems that Mandami has found a way to really make sure that he leans into that messaging and be consistent. And that is what is gaining people's attention and probably will help him win that election.
Yes. Having lived in New York City for a couple of years myself, I can tell you affordability is the biggest issue up there. I mean, even more so than crime. Andrew Cuomo is really trying to make it about public safety and crime. Let me tell you something. There are certain parts of New York City that you definitely don't want to go into late at night. But when it comes to like Manhattan, like most parts of the main city, like there's so many cops everywhere. There's so many cameras and people everywhere at all times of the day. I felt safer in Midtown Manhattan than I do in Anderson, Alabama. Like I felt
This.
safer. I felt safer in most on the subway than I do in some parts of Birmingham. In most parts of Birmingham, mind
Wait,
you.
don't do my city now. First of
I'm,
all,
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Okay, the South Side is cool, but I'm just saying.
but
But
I do think that New York as a whole is pretty. Oh, I won't say safe, but I was reading this article that talked about if you live in New York, you are more than likely being surveilled 24/7
twenty
just
four
because there
seven.
are so many cameras
Mm-hmm.
everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So, if something were to happen to you, justice would likely be served, I'm assuming. I never lived there. I've just been to New York plenty
Yeah.
of times. And as somebody, I don't know if it's just because of, um, I tend to be self aware. I've never really felt uncomfortable or unsafe
Yeah.
in New York, except
Yeah.
for the one time I got off on the wrong train in Queens at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and the trains had stopped, and I didn't know how to get back to Brooklyn.
Oh
That's the
well.
only time.
That's yeah.
But
That'll do it.
but other than that, I've never felt unsafe in New York.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
I
mean,
love it
Rand.
for the New Yorkers though, for them to have this opportunity to possibly get some kind of economic relief.
Yeah, and speaking of that economic relief, because people when they hear this word socialism, it's like, oh my god, it's going to be bread lines, and it's going to be horrible. Everything's going to go downhill. I looked at Mandami's website. I want to see the specific like policies, like what is he trying to do, and I'm seeing things like freeze the rent for stabilized tenants. I don't got no problem with that. Free bus fare for all city buses. Now, if you've been in New York several times, most people there, especially if you visit in the city or if you're really in a hurry, you're gonna take the train. Like that's what most people are taking there as far as transportation.
I took the bus like
Buses,
1 or 2 times. I hated it. It takes too long.
yes, takes too long. I lived there for 2 3 years, and I may have gotten on the bus maybe less than 5 times. The bus is really for the working class. Like I'm talking working class, or if you're just trying to go a short distance within a certain borough. It's really for people who are like older, who just really don't want to get on the subway because they feel like the subway may be a little less safe for them. That's what the bus is for. So honestly, making the bus free, they already have a few free lines that Mandami himself was actually responsible for getting when he was an assemblyman. So that's not really gonna like cost the city that much to make the buses free as long as they got the subway. You just raise the money for the subway and then you can pay for the free buses. That's pretty easy. Investing in mental health programs, building more housing so that the cost of housing can come down. Now, the two things that he said that were a little bit more far fetched, he said free childcare for people who have children under the age of 5. Now, that sounds great. I would love that, but that's as somebody who has 2 kids under 5, it's hard to find people that wants to like babysit them badass little kids. So I mean that
Your babies are not bad.
no,
Well,
they're not bad. They just loud, and so that's the thing. They just very loud and very active, both of them. And so, but I mean, but to people who are not used to children, Like having a kid just run around, even no, my kid's not bad, but like having a kid run around all day and having a kid be really loud and having a baby cry, like to a person who doesn't have kids and is not around kids, that can be very stressful to them and like annoying to them. You know what I'm saying? So I can
Yeah.
understand it. I'm used to it, but I can understand people that just aren't used to children like that. And so free up childcare, I love the idea. That's just one of those things that I feel like will be a little less, maybe a little bit harder to implement. And then, of course, he just wants to raise taxes on the super rich in New York City. They can afford it. Trust me. New York has more billionaires, millionaires than any place on earth. They
Yeah.
can afford to pay a little bit more in their taxes in
Just a
order to
little.
make some of these things happen. It's not going to affect their yachts or their summer
Right.
house in the Hamptons. They'll be all right. And so,
Right.
these things don't seem that far fetched to me. Most of them would just make the working class and their life a little bit easier in New York City, and all these people talking about, oh, New York City's gonna become a hellhole because they got free buses. Really, like I don't see that causing as much drama as some of these political pundits are saying.
Right. Yeah. I really hate that people get caught up in wanting, well, people getting caught up in wanting to name a specific party and saying that, oh, if you become socialist, this is what's going to happen, or oh, that's communism talk, and so things are going to be this, like, my how is it going to benefit the people? Like, I understand having like some historical context, and so using those examples as reasoning as to why you think those things,
Yeah,
but we have all heard how people say the United States was an experiment, right? We still experimenting as far as I'm concerned, right? We still ain't got it right. And why not try to change up the ways in which we do things sometimes, or just change up the way we do things? If we can say, hey, this two-party system that we've been operating on has not been working for all people. How can we implement, or bring in an aspect of another party and see how this works out for the American people? I don't understand what's the harm in that. But again, I'm sure that this is all rooted in racism in some kind of way, and I just don't have the context for it.
it's rooted in racism and classism. I mean, the rich people have fueled that propaganda for just centuries in this country that, hey, if you try to do this, everything's going to go to hell. But that's just because they don't want to lose their money. They don't
Right.
want to even lose, like, they're not even going to lose that much money. Nobody's talking about full blown communism here. We're talking about small little things that's going to make it better for the working class that might require the taxes to go up slightly on very wealthy people. Like, they're
Right.
still going to be extremely wealthy. They're still going to be one percenters. They're still going to have all the things they want. They just might have like maybe a couple $1,000s left at the end of the year than they would have previously. And if that money together collectively can help make life better for the 90% of society, I say go for it. I say, at least like you said, try it and see if it works. And again, there's just been so much propaganda against it, and that's the reason why we hear all these fears about socialism and stuff like that. But
Right.
Manami looks like he's going to probably win that race. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if Cuomo made like a last minute effort to go hard. We know Eric Adams and his craziness is also involved in that. The current mayor, he has recently endorsed Andrew Cuomo, so that might boost Cuomo a little bit. I don't know how much you know about Eric Adams, but to me, he's just Tracy Morgan as the mayor of New York City. Like, that's every time I hear him talk, he's just Tracy Morgan to me. He used to go out when I lived there. He would like go to nightclubs at 3 in the
That's what
morning.
I heard. So
Yeah,
yes, when I was working on the Road to Rickwood podcast a couple years ago, the producers I worked with lived in New York, and I was like, okay, so I hear all this controversy around Eric Adams. Tell me about him. And they were like, yeah, he's a wannabe influencer. And I was like, well, who elected him to be in? And they were just like, a lot of older Black and brown people voted him in office. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Because I don't really know all the ins and outs of what it's like to be politically active in New York City.
mm-hmm,
So it was
mm-hmm.
interesting to hear their perspective. And it was also interesting to hear that it's older Black and brown people who had that much voting power in that
Oh
city,
yeah,
because I didn't know that.
oh yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I've seen videos, I've heard clips of Eric Adams on social media where he talked about, he had a shorty in Yonkers or something like that, where he went to go see, or, the police had like done a huge bust and there were bags of weed, and he picked up one of the bags and smelled it, and before he walked up to
yeah.
yeah, I've seen and heard all this stuff. Yeah, he's kind of foolish.
He was foolish. He would be out at 3 in the morning talking about some New York is open for business. We open for business. It's like, bro, it's 3 a.m. You got to go to work tomorrow. Why are you out? We know New York is open for business. You ain't got to be out at the club at 3 o'clock in the morning to tell us that New York is open for business. That don't make no sense. But that's the kind of stuff he would do. He's a character. He's a crazy
And
character.
he's in cahoots with Trump.
Oh
So
yeah. Well,
that's another thing.
he's corrupt. We was found to be taking some bribes and stuff from I think it was Turkey or
Right.
some country,
Yes,
and then
perfect.
he was the FBI like arrested him for it, and then Trump got the charges dropped because he's gonna try to help Trump with the immigration stuff. It's a bunch of mess. It's a bunch of mess, but hopefully he ain't gonna be mayor pretty soon either way because he dropped out the race, and so we'll see what
And I
happens with
don't
this
really
race.
know what Andrew Cuomo has to pull out of his pocket at this point where he could potentially even win. I mean, I heard one of the clips that went around last week from the debate that took place where Mandami basically was like, you sexually harassed 13 women while you were in office.
Yep.
You used $20 million of taxpayer dollars to go after these women. You pulled up this one woman's gynecological medical charts, and what do you have to say to that, basically? And the woman was there in the crowd, and Cuomo had nothing to say.
Nothing.
I mean, he was tripping over his words. He didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
So I
Then you
mean,
can't say in that
right.
instance.
So I appreciate Zohran Madami not only like being a strong political candidate, but just being strong across the board in terms of being
Yes.
prepared for the political debates, being prepared for the questions and answers. I've seen he's been making his media rounds. And again, just like doubling down on the messaging that he wants to make New York affordable. And I think that all Democrats need to be taking notes,
Yeah.
including you, Gavin Newsom, as you prepare to try to run for president in 2028. Take notes as to how he is doing things, because that is what people who typically vote them, and I say people who typically vote Democrats because there are a lot of people who are, exiling themselves from the party. People but you could still gain their vote if you do these things that he's doing.
Yeah, and that's just to put a cap on that. You're absolutely right. Even if you don't support some of the policies because you think, oh, they go too far left or they're not going to be workable, the way he's going about it, the way his campaign is going on the offense, having such a tight social media ground game, just the fierceness of it, the fearlessness of it, like that's what Democrats got to do. They got to have a backbone. They got to fight for it. They can't just be up there, looking sleepy on the cameras like some of these senators is doing during the shutdown.
Who's
They
doing
got
that?
to actually, Chuck Schumer, but a lot of them are doing that.
Yeah.
But the Jeffries, I feel like Jeffries don't really got that energy like that for real. Hakeem Jeffries,
Jeffries
but
be at this whole whack. Oh my god.
it's just like
He's so
we need that.
lame.
Yes, we need that youthful energy, and Mandami represents that. So even if you don't support the policies, just the way he's going about it, definitely adopt that energy. Well, we got a few minutes left, and Cody, I know there was some other things we want to talk about, but I really want to throw the last few minutes to you. I'm gonna give this to you, Cody. You had some stories, but I think we talked about the Tuberville thing already. But you had another story that you wanted to bring to the table that we want to talk about. Tell me what the story is that you want to talk about. I'm gonna call this Cody's Corner. Whatever you want to talk about for the next few minutes,
I
I'm
like
gonna let you
that.
go in.
Okay, I like that. So late last week, AJ McCarron, who is a former quarterback for the University of Alabama's football team and went on to the NFL, decided that he is going to come out of football retirement and enter Alabama politics by running for Alabama lieutenant governor. Now, this is how stupid Republicans in Alabama think y'all are. Okay? This is how stupid they actually not think, they know that y'all are stupid, okay? Because not only has AJ McCarron never voted before,
Never.
he registered to vote for the first time 3 days before he announced that he was going to run for lieutenant governor. He has no political experience. If you've never voted, I'm just going to assume that you don't know much about any level of politics. They said that he's never even voted in the previous states that he lived in when he was working as a pro athlete. But he said that his inspiration came from Turning Point USA's Charlie Kirk. And that is what has motivated him to run for lieutenant governor. Now, the people that I live amongst in the state of Alabama have already voted for Tommy Tuberville once. Okay. Tommy Tuberville also has no political background. No. Tommy Tuberville doesn't even seem to have a home in the state of Alabama. He apparently lives in Florida full time. He is for those who don't know, he is a former football coach at Auburn University. That is his claim to fame here in the state of university. He just woke up one day and said, hey, you know what? If Trump can get in the White House and the people in Alabama voted for him, you know what? I don't think I have to have much experience to even run as U.S. Senator. So he ran for U.S. Senator. I don't want to say about 2 weeks after he got elected, I think he admitted that he didn't know the three branches of government. He's done a lot of other things to continue to embarrass the state of Alabama.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm not a huge Katie Britt fan, but at least Katie Britt is a trained politician in that she knows how to at least make herself look like she's for the people. She was here in Birmingham this past week for the Magic City Classic. For those who do not know, that is the blackest HBCU gathering that happens in the country. Almost 100,000 people gather here, and Katie Britt was there. She was at that event. I don't see Tommy Tuberville attending anything locally, like across the state. I've never seen him support any kind of local initiative. I don't know about the money that he is bringing from DC to Alabama. I know about all the things that Katie Britt is doing. Nonetheless, Tommy Tuberville has made such an impact on the state of Alabama that he, I'm sure, has opened up the door for AJ McCarron to say, hey, Tommy Tuberville can do this. I can do this shit too. And so they know how stupid a lot of y'all are here in the state of Alabama, that they are saying, I'm going to run for governor, Tommy Tuberville. And everybody is already saying that he is likely going to win because they know how stupid a lot of you Alabama Republicans are. And AJ McCarron is so bold in his own, collegiate football career that he said, hey, I brought home a few touchdowns or helped bring a few touchdowns at the University of Alabama. I helped secure some of those national championships with Coach Nick Saban. Mm-hmm. Don't vote for me, even though I just registered to vote yesterday. So that's where we're at here in Alabama, Cory. This is the state that you and I live in. This is what we have to deal with. And so, I feel like I pretty much have said what this has to say for Alabama Republican voters and what this has to say about political candidates or people who choose to run for state office in Alabama. There have also been rumors about Paul Feinbaum running to take Tommy Tuberville's seat in the U.S. Senate once he is possibly elected for governor. These folks sports is all that y'all dumbasses need in order to vote somebody in office. They said, we don't have no political experience. I have no political degree. I ain't read not damn political book. I don't know. I ain't voted. I don't know shit about politics. But you know what? Those people in Alabama, they'll vote for me because you know what? I know how to talk about football. Yeah. And I know how to throw the ball. That's all it takes here.
Yeah. Cody, I mean, there's not much I can add because you just pretty much laid it all out. And as you were talking, it just got worse and worse. Like I was waiting for, like, is there a silver lining? Is there some positive? It's like, no, it just got worse and worse. But if AJ McCarron can do that, if he can run for lieutenant governor, he has no background in politics. I have a small background in politics, used to be in political organizing. I'm working on my master's in public administration. I think I'm just gonna go into the draft for the NFL next year. I think I'm gonna just go ahead and do it. I'm 5'9", 160 pounds. I've never thrown a football
in
my life.
Pounds? You're not 160 pounds.
What you think I was?
Not more than 130.
What? No, don't do me like that now. Don't do me like that.
You are small.
I'm not that small. I'm 160 easily. 155 if I've not been eating as much that week. But I'm not 130. Now, 130, I'd be sick. Come on now. 130? I ain't no 130. But 5'9", 160 pounds. Okay.
You want to be on the scale for me.
Oh, you gonna keep, we can bring, I have a scale in here. We can do that. But I've never thrown a football. I know some about football, but I think it's time for me to go ahead and try out.
Might as well.
I mean, a lot of teams could use, a backup quarterback, something, wide receiver. I can do something. Because that is the logic here that AJ McCarron is using. That is the logic. It is as if I, a 30-something-year-old who's never played football before, wanted to try out for the NFL. That is the equivalency of AJ McCarron even thinking about running for lieutenant governor. And he has actually seriously said he is running. There's got to be some dark money behind this. And I know you said you was doing some research on that, so I didn't know if I was going to bring it up. But I know you want, and we may talk about this once you've done your research on it, but somebody's got to be funding these people because there's just, who just gets up one day and says, you know what? Let me throw myself into the dirtiest line of work ever that I have no experience in, just because I know the people will vote for me because I used to throw footballs well.
That's
Like
how
that,
you know they're not even serious.
somebody's got to get in their ear though. Somebody's got to get in their ear to do that, because otherwise, why put the? Because when you run for office, they dig up every little piece of dirt they get. So any girl he was with in college, anything you could possibly think of, they gonna dig it up and bring that shit
Oh,
out
there's
when you
already
run
been
for office.
girls who were at UA at the time that he was there who said that he was an absolute asshole.
Oh
And I
yeah,
want to say
quarterback.
that right, he's the quarterback. But I also want to say that he allegedly, I read that he allegedly was spreading STDs around. I don't know.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh
So,
my god.
which is on brand for, I
That's
mean,
pretty on brand though.
I was in Tuscaloosa when AJ McCarron was the quarterback at UA. And
Mhm.
let me tell you something, those football players, they 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 walked around the city thinking they were gods because everybody treated
Oh
them
yeah.
like that.
I mean, it's
So
Alabama. This is the biggest football state next to Texas. It's if you're on that team, especially if you start on that team, you're gonna get treated like a god or something close to it.
right.
100%, absolutely. So
Hmm.
yeah, so it sounds like AJ McCarron wants to do to this state what he did to them girls on UA, and that's
Oh
just
my god.
it's infect us all. Just infect us with the worst possible sickness. Because
But
with no
like,
knowledge of
where's
these
Doug Jones?
things,
Like, this is my like this is the problem. Democrats, even here in Alabama, like, what the fuck are we doing? Where's
yeah,
the real candidates? Like, there I think of four people running on the Democratic ticket locally. Only one or two of which I've heard of who have some political experience and have ran for office before, but they have ran unsuccessfully because Alabama is such a
mhm.
deep red state. We need a
Yeah,
real contender, somebody who
yeah,
can really break through.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and Doug
Yeah,
Jones is the only person I know who could possibly do that.
yeah,
Um,
Doug Jones definitely needs to run at least for. I mean, I'd rather see him run for governor because I think that is we got to stop Tuberville. But even if he wanted to run for Senate again, I'd be okay with that as well, just because that's a more winnable race, honestly. And
you
we
mentioned
need
Walt
something.
Maddox another time too, right?
Walt Maddox. I was just in my head. I was thinking about Walt Maddox. I was even thinking of Woodfin out of Birmingham. I know he just won
No,
a third term. I know he just won a third term in Birmingham, but still,
they would
you
never
know,
vote for a black. Like, look.
hell.
He can be offering free food and free rent for the rest of the year. They see black and they're gonna be like, hell no, no.
Yeah, but there's almost what 25, 26% of this state is black. If we got off our asses and voted with some of these white liberals and white Democrats, it could be done. It could be done. But
I
you're
do
right, it's
think,
an uphill battle. It's
yeah,
certainly an uphill battle.
I do think that there could be a political strategy that is put together where all black people in the state are, galvanized along with the white liberals in state. I think there's something to that.
There's
And
something that I
why
mean
it
that's
hasn't
how
been
Doug Jones won.
activated.
That's how Doug Jones won, a few years ago when he
Right.
won the special
Right.
election.
So that needs to
It
be
can be done.
activated again. We need
Yeah.
Doug Jones on this show actually, so we can
Yeah,
talk.
I reached out to his people. Doug Jones, if you're listening, you know me, man. You know what it's like. Cause just come on to the show, talk to us. We ain't gonna make you tell us whether or not you're gonna run, but you can at least talk to us about the landscape of everything that's going on and give us your insight because we would really love to hear it. But Cody, this is the CNN portion of the show where I tell people to to subscribe to the YouTube page, to like us and rate us wherever you're listening to us, whether it's Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening to the podcast. And we are going to go back to the studio here in a couple weeks. We just wanted to play with the format a little bit, do things a little differently, and we appreciate everybody listening to the show. And we'll see you guys next time.